Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hard Nine podcast. Thank you, as always, so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. And if you notice, you will see there are now three of us, much more handsome because Kyle Reis has joined us, writer from Birds on the Black, minor league baseball writer from Birds on the Black, and also Twitter sensation. That's what I will say. Thanks so much, dude. We're so happy to have you on.
What a nightmare. You start doing some emotional inventory, some mental and emotional inventory when your label is a Twitter sensation. Like, you know what? I'm going back to school. I'm enrolling tomorrow. I'm going to rethink the decisions in my life. And once I'm done, probably masturbating after this, not to you guys, but like to other things afterwards, I will reset my life course.
Whatever it takes, dude. We accept all kinds here. We are very welcoming. So thanks so much, dude. We greatly appreciate you joining us. It seems like Caleb and I had Kareem on, I don't know, maybe a week or two ago, and we were all talking about how since the dismal April of the St. Louis Cardinals, outside of just watching and tuning in simply to see what can they fuck up next, like essentially, right? I mean, I have been all in on Memphis, Springfield. Thank God for the MLB package because I've got everything. I've been watching more minor league baseball and honestly paying more attention to you guys than anything. And it's got me incredibly excited for the future of like Cardinals baseball.
Yeah, so I feel like this is something that I'm confronting more frequently. Cardinal fans who are delving into the minor league game and the minor league product more because of MLB TV's ability to present it to people outside of the St. Louis market. So I've loved having these conversations with people who are watching those games a little bit more. I think it gives fans a little bit more context to what we're seeing when we are writing and talking about them. And also maybe some things that pop out to them. I have 2 points to kind of go off of that. My first one is people always ask me when they go to see a minor league game live, like, hey, I'm going to see Palm Beach tomorrow. Who should I focus on? And my answer is always the same thing. It's always, well, if you want, I can give you a list of players to focus on. But what I prefer is that you go in blind and you let those tools pop to you. So to have fans who, sure, they know what I'm talking about, or Kareem or Blake or Adam Akbani over on Viva Alberto's, or Keith Law or Eric Longenhagen or Kylie McDaniel or any of the national guys, those awesome people on Prospect Live. Sure, you have a little bit of background, but when you get to go in and watch a Peoria game with that crappy camera angle, and all of a sudden Jimmy Crooks is hitting a double to the opposite field gap with a really easy swing and the ball just jumps off his bat, like you get to experience that excitement. And that's what matters to me. Like, I love that. So to hear that you're watching it, like, my question to you would be, I have two questions for both of you. If you've been watching some minor league games, who is somebody that stuck out to you? And then what do you think specifically about the ABS system, the way it's applied at AAA? What are your thoughts on that? So to both of you.
The player that sticks out to me, I think every time you watch him, is Victor Scott II. The guy is electric to watch. Like, he's one of those guys where if you don't know Victor Scott, you don't know, he was a middle round draft pick in, what was it, 2022? Was he drafted last year? Is that right?
Yeah, 5th round pick last year.
Yeah, and you don't know who he is, and then you watch him, you're like, this is, I mean, he's captivating more than anyone else on that team. But the ABS system, I like it. I like the way they've gone with it. I like that it's, I don't know if I'm kind of in favor of a fully automated strike zone to some extent, but I like the aspect of, hey, I know that's a ball. Let's check it. It's going to keep guys in the games. Nolan Arenado, obviously, who gets ejected every once in a while because he gets too fiery. You can get to keep those guys in the game, and there's a way to do it quickly. I like it. They need to perfect it. I still don't feel like it's perfect, but I like that. And I obviously Mason Wynn as well. Like, that guy, you watch Mason Wynn play, and it's like he's the only guy you just gravitate towards him. Your eyes are on him the entire time.
For me, big fan of the ABS. I coached high school baseball for almost 25 years. So my hatred of umpires reigns supreme. So anything we can do to get their arrogance off the field, I'm all on board with. But as far as players go, Victor Scott has become my guy too. Really, honestly, not on the radar. Caleb and I went to last August a Peoria game up at Dozier Park and had a great time. And it was the one kid they cut, the Lott kid, Todd Lott, and then LJ Jones. That was kind of the two guys that we were kind of there to see. We didn't get to see any of the pitchers that time, but Victor's. But I have been, and Caleb hates him for some reason, but Luken Baker is my guy. And I've been on this bandwagon for Luken Baker since literally in March. And Caleb looked me in the eye and said, I don't give two shits about Luken Baker. So I will remind him of that now every single time. And Luken, whenever you come on here, just talk to me, buddy. Just you and I will talk. Caleb, we can leave him out of it. But I love watching Luken Baker. I love watching big dudes hit bombs. So that's,
I don't hate Luken Baker. That's false, but he spreads that around.
I think Luken Baker is a fascinating exploration of prospect expectations to production, right? And it if it was any other, we'll take Nick Dunn. Nick Dunn and Luken Baker could not be any different, both stature and what they do, right? And what you have with Luken Baker is an early round pick who's coming into his own, even though he's old at an advanced league. So when he starts hitting bombs, even though it's a second turn at AAA, and it feels real, it feels more real as opposed to Nick Dunn, who is a middle. I think Nick Dunn. I'm gonna end up screwing this up. I think he was actually a 7th round pick, but it was at this point it was 6 years ago. He doesn't really do a whole lot. He's kind of slaps ball around. He hits it harder than your average slap hitter. And when he's doing it at AAA, you just think, even though he's repeated AA a couple times. So for me, I understand why, especially last year with the DH. There was a chance everybody was saying Luken Baker might be one of these guys who can fill in the DH. The DH is in the NL. Luken Baker could be that guy. And then he just fell off the face of the earth last year, had a terrible year. It never came about. So I see both of your points. I thought there was a chance entering the year that Luken Baker would refine or rediscover some of that prospect standing that he had. I didn't expect it like this. So it feels a little helium to me. But to see him do it is really exciting. And I at the same time, I believe he's a major leaguer. I believe he can become that. We haven't seen it yet. And the skepticism is warranted. So I see where both of you guys are coming from there.
That's my point mostly on Luken Baker is I like him. I think he can be a big league hitter for sure. He definitely has that ability. I just don't know if that's with the St. Louis Cardinals. And if it is, I don't know if that's at the benefit of him because goalie's not going anywhere, at least not for the foreseeable future. And who knows? We're going to talk about catching later, hopefully. Who knows if how many DH days Wilson's going to get? That'll come to his time. We know we have Gorman and Donovan who's going to be playing second, who's going to be DHing on any given day. I think the best thing for Luken Baker is probably to go anywhere else, honestly, to get a real chance.
Yeah. I just wonder how many, I say that a lot. I say that a lot with a lot of Cardinal prospects. I felt that way about so many Cardinal prospects over the years. I just wonder how many other teams have a player like Luken Baker that they're waiting to give an opportunity to as well. And it's the whole draft and development or, international signing and draft and development aspect. Every team seems to be wanting to do that more and more. And sure, you'll get a rogue new owner who will come in and kind of throw that to the wayside. But they always end up after a couple of years resetting and rebounding into that draft and development. And I want to see every one of these players get an opportunity like Nick Dunn. As annoyed by him as I am, because he's just a little monster who does not make any sense at all. He's like a little pocket monster who just kind of slaps the ball around and he's a terrible fielder. He's not a good defensive second baseman. They've tried him at third and it hasn't worked out either. I want him I want some team who needs a second baseman to just be hey, we'll give you a low A catcher, even though you got 74 of them for Nick Dunn. And I want him to go there and just get a chance to hit. I've watched so much of these guys for so many years now that I just want all of them to get a fair shake. And not to say they're not getting a fair shake in the Cardinals organization, just opportunity in baseball is rare. And we see that now more than ever, especially with the Cardinals.
Let me ask you this, Kyle. Do you think and do you see MLB expanding in the next 2 to 5 years? Maybe 5 to 10 years. 2 to 5 might be too short. And obviously that's going to become at the behest of a guy like Luken Baker because by that time he's going to be in Crash Davis territory trying to break the record in some Durham, stadium. But do you think that maybe if they look at that expansion and if that is an option, what that does is that just opens that player pool up for so many of those guys who are in that 23 to 26 range where that new team's going to be more likely to take them and give them a shot earlier on than another team, maybe their own system.
Well, our overlord Rob Manfred said that the step 1 and step 2 is sorting out the stadiums in Oakland and Tampa Bay, and then that's when they would start addressing and exploring expansion in honesty. So we know that they've definitely done the groundwork and the preliminary work for expansion. That's pretty well documented at this point, which says nothing of what some of the other towns in America have done to try to present themselves as a town that could be expanded into. But I still think we need to figure out, I mean, Oakland, it sounds like, is all but headed to Vegas. So that just comes what happens with Tampa Bay. And, that still seems up in the air. So my guess is if Manfred is a man of his word and he's just stupid enough to be, because his word is always the worst,
Always.
It always, right? I would say that we'll have to wait to see what happens with Oakland and Tampa before we get there. And then I do expect there to be quick expansion. I would imagine those teams, those towns will have baseball being played before the stadium's built. That's what I think. I think the owners understand, especially with so many broadcast dollars, up in flux, questions about the broadcasting dollars and maybe not getting as much money. I think that they will look for a quick payday, and I think that's a quick way to make a payday.
Agreed.
All right.
You want to get into the outfield, Kay?
Yeah, and apparently they're threatening Milwaukee to relocate, because why would we not threaten people at this point in time? But whatever. I want to get into Jordan Walker. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Real fast with that. If you'll remember with the Rams, it wasn't just the Rams. And sure, like in St. Louis here, the Rams relocated to LA, and sure, San Diego went to LA and Oakland went to Vegas. But at the same time, this is what they do. They use this as like a fun little leverage thing. Like, oh, we've got all these towns who are bidding behind the scenes for a chance at a major league franchise. They use that as leverage to get whatever they want built.
Like a bigger stadium.
Exactly. That's it. So that's go ahead, take Milwaukee out of the Brewers out of Milwaukee. What a stupid decision that would be.
It'd be awful. That'd be awful. That's a great. Milwaukee's a great baseball town.
It would be as dumb as taking the Athletics out of Oakland.
Yeah,
it's all awful. It's all. I mean, Major League Baseball is a shit show. I want to get to everyone's favorite prospect coming into the year, Jordan Walker. Ups and downs to start his career, as everyone should have expected. I don't think everyone did expect, but they should have. I want to talk specifically about his defense, because I think we're all under the belief that his bat needs to grow, but it will most likely come at some point in time. His defense, I haven't seen much of an improvement. I want to know has he been better than you expected, worse, or about what you expected, considering he's only been an outfielder for just over a year at this point.
I would say it's been worse than I expected. Now, it's worth having a little bit of context on my view of Jordan Walker as an outfielder. I understood, and I also supported the Cardinals waiting to give him reps in the outfield until after the trade deadline last year. Like, that made a lot of sense to me. Keep him at third base. You don't really know what's going to happen with Arenado. You've already moved Gorman to second base. Let's wait and see. So I like that they waited, because he still needed reps at third to be a third baseman. He wasn't quite there yet. A major league caliber third baseman. He wasn't quite there yet. So I approved of the Cardinals waiting to give him those in-game reps, because he would take reps in practice or whatever, but it was very minimal and very low key. And then I also wanted them to give him reps in center, because he's athletic. His speed is underrated. His athleticism is underrated. So I wanted to see that. And we saw that last year, and he just didn't take to it. And by the end of the year last year, he did not look good at all in either corner or in center. Now, I didn't get to watch in the Arizona Fall League, but people that I trust in the industry, who I talk to somewhat frequently, said that he had made pretty decent strides in Arizona. So without seeing it for myself, I didn't watch much of the Arizona Fall League broadcast because I hated the angle. Without seeing it for myself, I didn't really have much of a thought. I thought, okay, we're going to see improvement. And if he was a below average corner outfielder, I thought he'll be fine. They could stash him in left. We've had below average corner left fielders win championships for the Cardinals. Matt Holliday, Alan Craig, Albert Pujols. Like
every time they've won a championship.
Lonnie Smith.
Yeah, Lonnie Smith.
Chris Duncan.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was thinking. So I will say when he came to spring training and he got up to a hot start and he still looked like crap in the outfield, I thought, all right, this is kind of a concern. This is part of the reason why I wanted to start the year at AAA. And then the thing that really befuddled me is at the beginning of the year, the Cardinals are still trying to win at this point. They're trying to get off to good starts. They're trying to buck losing trends. And in the ninth inning, in the eighth inning, and the seventh inning of games, this really poor right fielder is still playing the game in the field when you have more accomplished outfielders on the bench. And they just never set him up for success. He was never given a chance to have success in the outfield. And there was never really an urgency for him. Like, especially because he's just average. He's a little bit above a major league average hitter. He's going to ebb and flow, and he'll be way above major league average in a year or two. We'll wait and see how long it takes. It could even be by the end of this year, but he'll get there. I still think he'll get there out in the outfield. He'll be just a little bit below average. He'll have a better idea of picking up the baseball in the corner and firing it to second instead of looking to see what happens, like we saw tonight. Even though the runner stayed at first, it was a dart to second. Like, those little things will carry him to just like not the worst defensive outfielder in a corner. It'll carry him to bottom quarter. But like, there is more in there. There's more athleticism. There's more potential. And because of that, I did not expect 1 year after this experiment for him to still be as bad as he is. He definitely looks more comfortable out there. I think that they see the athleticism and the arm and they think, oh, right fielder. I still wish that they would. And he feels more comfortable in right. So that's half the battle too. But I just wish they would have been like, hey, look, we're going to bury you in left and we'll figure out the rest, especially even though he's a better right fielder by the metrics than left. Like Newbar in center or right. Like, I just think they could have aligned it a little bit better to give him a better chance at success, because they did not do him any flavors. There were no flavors involved, but specifically no favors to get to him where he's at right now.
The thing that makes me laugh about the whole not taking him out in the eighth, ninth inning of close games, which one, if he makes a mistake, ton of pressure on him. Now you got to go in the clubhouse and face your teammates. Now the next time you're in that situation, you're thinking about the last time you were in that situation, and it's a mental struggle. But now they're 14 games under 500 and games that don't matter, and they're taking them out in the eighth inning. It's like
the dumbest thing ever.
Well, what the hell are you doing here? If you win this game and you lose this game, honestly, you lose it. Might be better for your franchise, but like, who cares now? It doesn't make any sense. The mixed messaging of this team, I think the Cardinals have a lot of really smart people, both in the dugout and the front office, a ton of them with a lot of success. But some of the things they do, I just do not understand. And that is one of them.
Yeah. I don't feel like we get reasonable reasonings either. That's not like a knock on the reporting around here. But I just feel like there's a lot of questions that I have that don't get asked and thus don't get answered. And I think it's because there's no easy way to ask them, and there's no way to get a real answer. So it's like, why even ask them? But yeah, that's I agree with you, Caleb. I think you make some good points. I try my hardest to reason and be empathetic and try to find the reasoning behind the decisions. And I don't get them a lot, especially in that month where they still seemed like they had a chance at a playoff spot, whatever that looked like. And it was even more befuddling then. Like now you just kind of blow everything off. They're losing 5-3 to the Oakland A's, and Gallegos just let up a hit, and you look at it, you think, whatever, get through the inning. But a month ago, this was happening, and it shouldn't have. And these are the things that you're talking about.
It's so weird, because
if I
have
could
so
ask
much
the
respect
front
for
office
Ollie,
a question, my number one would be, why do you hate Dylan Carlson so much? That's my number one question. And I just want someone to explain it to me. Like, it just seems to me, from a 35,000 feet above view. Last year we watched Dylan play center after Bader got traded. Everyone watching could tell that Dylan Carlson was an above average center fielder. Like, that wasn't hard to see. I can see that. Most people can see that. And then when we came into camp, it was, there's an open competition. But we kind of all, no one ever really believed that it was really an open competition. It was like, here, Tyler, you're now the center field. And ever since then, I don't know what Dylan did over the offseason to piss them off. I don't understand it. But now we got people who are saying he's not even a good outfielder. And I'm like, that's not true at all. I don't understand what they've done to this poor kid. I really, really don't.
I'm with you. For me, it's the perfect storm, right? I think now this is a total guess. This isn't fair. It's not fair to, it's just not fair for me to say this, but I don't think it's the front office. I think the front office still believes in him. I think the front office still likes him. I think it's a coaching staff thing. I think, especially when you think the beginning of the year with Tyler O'Neill being the starting center fielder, I think they wanted thump. I think all they could think about are exit velocities. Now, that's not to diminish exit velocity. It is very, 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 very important. The harder you hit the ball, the better chance you have of getting a hit. Just that simple. Like there's no getting around it. There's no arguing against it. Sure, you luck into some hits here and there, but and you're going to luck into some outs too, hitting the ball hard. But I think that they just saw that. I think that they were singularly focused on that. And candidly, I think that's why Tyler Motter is still around. Sure, he doesn't make contact with the ball 80% of the time, but when he makes contact the other 20, it's hit hard. So I think that they're just overly focused on the exit velocity on a lot of things, and that's what they were focused on at the beginning of the year. And I think that put Dylan on the back burner. He had a pretty decent spring training. He showed progress hitting left-handed. And it was never real. He never really got a chance. And that was my anger. And this is obviously not a front office thing with the way that he was used at the beginning of the year, because you had a lot of really bad outfielders. And late in games, Dylan Carlson wouldn't even get a chance out in the outfield. That was just mind-boggling. That's not a front office thing. That's got to be a coaching thing. The coach makes the end-game decisions. So and then, the other part of that too, this isn't a free pass for Dylan, who has been pretty bad when he's played. He hasn't lived up to his standard out in the outfield. He does sometimes, but he doesn't do it like he did last year, to your point, Mike. It's been the worst case scenario. And sure, maybe he feels a lack of trust from the coaching staff. And I don't know if he does or not. I don't want to pretend like I do.
I would imagine that anybody in his position would, at least a little bit.
I'm with you. Can you imagine, all right, you felt comfortable enough with me last year to trade Harrison Bader, and you gave me center fielder. You gave me the center field spot, and I got hurt, and I just couldn't get it together. And then you never gave me a chance to recoup that while you were handing out starting outfield spots, including Tyler O'Neill, who you guys know I love. I love that guy. He's awesome. He's not a center fielder. He was never a center fielder. It was just never going to work. To give him the center field job was hilarious. It was a huge misstep from the beginning. And then not only to give him the center field job, but then to beat him down almost immediately. It was like, hey, we don't really know what we're doing, which isn't fair. They know what they're doing. It just, we weren't doing what we wanted to do right, more than likely, probably. So yeah, look, I think it's a perfect storm with Dylan. I think he's underperforming his capabilities. I think he puts too much pressure on himself. I think he's made too many adjustments at the plate to get away from the prospect that I saw, the kid who would be able to handle a breaking pitch, swinging left-handed, who wasn't always waiting on changeups to beat him. Because that's, to me, when I watch him hit, I think back to that 2020 season when he was just fed changeup and couldn't do anything with them, because he hadn't seen that level of changeups in the minor leagues. I feel like that changed his entire approach. But he's had growth this year, just hasn't accumulated on a stat sheet. And all of it's working against him. So all of that is just to say that I don't know what the hell's going on with him. If you talk about a player that I would like to see get a chance in another organization, he's my Adolis Garcia. Just DFA him. You know what?
Right.
Screw it. Just DFA him. If he doesn't have the trade value you want him to have, just DFA him. Let him go somewhere. And he's not going to hit 30 home runs anywhere. That's not his game. But maybe he goes on to have a couple of years like Stephen Piscotty had in Oakland before Stephen Piscotty became a AAA player in the White Sox organization.
Right. Even if he's 2021 Dylan Carlson, that was a very good baseball player. He was setting extra base hit switch hitting records in the Cardinals organization for rookies. That's what I mean. He had a great year in 2021. I don't get it. He's injured now with an oblique strain, which we know those can be the biggest pain to rebound from because they just never heal, it seems like. And when they do, you never know. But another guy I want to talk to you about, because he's probably Lars Nootbaar is probably becoming maybe the fans' favorite players besides Arenado. He's up there with Nolan Arenado as everyone's favorite player. When he was in the minor leagues, I didn't know much about him at all because at that point I wasn't as invested in minor league baseball as I am now. Did you have any idea that he could be this 820, 830 OPS guy he's become? Because I don't
No,
think
no,
anyone thought that.
no. I thought for sure he showed really good plate discipline, right? And he showed a really good ability to swing at strikes. But by the time he made it to Springfield, the thing that was clear to me, and this would have been before 2020, so before COVID, like to me, he was a non-prospect. He did not swing hard at the ball. It was he was a slap hitter of an outfielder. And when you watch a slap hitting outfielder who doesn't like have elite speed, you get dismissive of it. And also, he was a clunky outfielder. He had a really good arm, but he was a clunky outfielder. So when you watch him at Springfield, the only way that you would value him as a prospect of high standing is if you probably overvalued or maybe appropriately valued, but I'm going to say overvalued, just in zone swinging ability, because that's what he did really well in the minors. He just didn't do a whole lot with it. So you get 2020, you get COVID, you get a kid who evaluates how he goes about his whole process, and he comes out of COVID, changes everything about himself as a baseball player, and that got him to where he's at right now. Just that simple. 2020 COVID, it affected every player. It just affected every player a little bit differently. And certain guys, it affected the most positive way, and Lars Nootbaar is one of those guys.
And Randy Rosarena, who was eating chicken and rice and doing push-ups every day or whatever he was doing in 2020.
That's right. Yeah.
But the thing that I find interesting about Nootbaar is he credits a lot of his success, the second half, because he's been on an absolute tear, to Nolan Arenado because they hit together all the time. That shows once again the value of having a Nolan Arenado who's willing to say, "Hey, Newt, swing harder. Like you're not doing anything right now." So that's one of the stories I love, because I love one obviously I love Nolan Arenado because who doesn't, and I love to see something like that, and I think their relationship's awesome.
Me too. One of the guys I think that following along with you that I know you're also, I mean, you're a big fan, obviously you've said with all of these guys, you get connected to them. Like that's what happens. I grew up in the baseball card era. So every baseball card of the Cardinals I had, I loved Glenn Brummer for literally no reason. Like, other than I had all those cards. So I get it. You become connected when you watch these guys every day. But Alec Burleson, I don't know what to make of him yet. And I don't know that any Cardinal fan does either, because he's one of those guys that doesn't get regular all the time playing time. But we've seen in the last month and a half, I mean, he's shown his ability to hit at the MLB level. I don't know what kind of outfielders. I know obviously you're talking about a guy who pitched and played first base for the most part in college. Then again, another guy you move to the outfield. Cardinals love to do that. So you kind of have to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Is this another going to become I'm one of those guys that we just kind of glaze over as a Cardinal? And then I feel like we do that, and you brought that up with so many guys that it's like, is he ever going to get the full spot or shot in St. Louis? Or is that another guy that we just kind of throw away in a trade? In 3 years, we look down, he's hitting 320 for a team.
I think that all of the outcomes are possible with him. Look, the one thing that became abundantly clear to me, let me take a couple steps back. When we did the draft episode of Prospects After Dark in 2020, when the Cardinals drafted Alec Burleson, that was the most familiar I've ever been with any draft, right? It was a COVID year. All you could do was watch footage and draft research. There was nothing else to do other than drink, and for me, loathe going into work while everybody else got to stay at home. So it was the greatest 3 months of my life, honestly. Sorry, everybody else. So I was really familiar with them, but at the time it seemed like, all right, the Cardinals they just drafted 3 prep high ceiling players that they're going to need to go over slot with. Alec Burleson, he's got Team USA pedigree. He's got a high contact bat. This is a underslot sign, right? So I was a little dismissive of him. And then when I heard that they were moving him to the outfield, I thought, all right, this poor guy, he's a little clunky. We'll see what happens. And then that first series for Peoria, because he started that year in 2021 in Peoria, he's diving around and making crazy plays out in the outfield. And I thought, look, you can tell he's slow, you can tell he's clunky, but the kid's going out for everything. And that also was how all of his at-bats were. He was never going to get cheated. And every year, but not every year, every level he went through the minors, it was the same thing. He'd have a rough first month, and then he'd get his shit together, and he'd start raking. Now he swings at everything, and he always swing at everything unless it's way off the zone, and then he's letting it go. But he would be a very aggressive swinger, but he would make contact with it, and he'd have these really long at bats, and he just foul pitches off until he got the pitch he was looking for, and that kept him alive. And then a month into his tenure at Peoria or Double A or Triple A, he was raking, and it was real raking. It was hard hit, not striking out, raking. And I think that what we've seen this year out of Alec Burleson is 1 month of at bats over 3 months that have now gotten us to this point, which is the trend in the minor leagues, where, you know what, he's not going to hit like he hit in the minors because these pitchers are too good for that. Just that simple. But he's going to hit because he's a hitter, and hitters hit. It's just what they do. Now, if the power is going to come, he's probably going to need to continue to make adjustments, swinging at balls in the strike zone in hitters' counts. Getting ahead in the count is going to be huge for him. But I think that his bat is real. Now, what's real? For me, when you go to WRC Plus, I'm talking about like in a limited role, taking advantage of where he's at. I do think there's like a 120 to 130 WRC Plus season or two in there. I think more than likely he's going to be, when used properly, a 105 to 115 a WRC Plus guy who maybe 1 year, to your point, Mike, maybe 1 year he hits 333 and right, no one else hits above 315, and you're like, oh shit, Bill Miller just got over on us, or Lucido Polanco just got over on us, even though he's an outfielder who will hit 15 home runs and probably only get on base 36% of the time when he hits 330, like there is that in him. It's just a matter of if the clunkiness in his body mechanics allow for it. Because, if the Cardinals were to trade him, whatever team's going to use him, it's either going to be a really bad team who can just bury him in left and use him as DH, or a really good team who's going to take advantage of what he's good at. And that'll probably limit his at-bats. But look, he's a major leaguer. There was no doubt in the minors that he was a major leaguer, that he was a major league hitter. It was just a matter of getting to that point with him, in my opinion.
Yeah, it kind of feels like to me that the Cardinals, I'm not saying that the other organizations aren't this way either, because I just don't pay as much attention to them, that the Cardinals are like that friend of yours that always has the wayward eye. Like they've got something really good. You know what I mean? And then they're just looking at the one who are maybe at the high school down the road. And they're like, well, right there. Like that's what I always think the Cardinals, like he's really good. She's hot, but this new one coming up, just wait. That's how I feel. Because now I'm in love with Victor Scott. I'm in love with the Chase Davis signing. Braden Jobert lives right down the road from me. So at LSU, like I can't root for that guy enough. The kid Levinson? Levinson hit 5 home runs already or 4, whatever it is. Like, are they going to now say, well, we've got a Tyler O'Neill and a Dylan Carlson and a Lars Nootbaar, but these down here, just wait. Like, that's what it feels like to me, and maybe that's oversimplifying. I
think that's every org, though.
It probably is. I just
guys
pay
get more
attention
expensive
to what we do.
Yeah. Guys get more expensive, and then they say, well, this guy's cheaper and maybe better. We'll see. That's kind of their thing.
Look, with the Wander Franco news, you can't make that correlation. You can't make that comparison. You just can't. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Is that too soon? My apologies. No. My apologies to everyone involved in Tampa.
I was wondering when Wander Franco was going to come up. I knew it was bound to happen eventually.
It almost happened 5 minutes in. I'm not going to lie.
Same, but I figured I'm not going to do it.
I was trying to hold off. But it didn't happen. Nolan Gorman. I know Nolan Gorman, everyone's favorite left-handed power hitting second baseman. This back issue, is this concerning to you? We'll start with that. And then also, we all know what Nolan Gorman does. He's hot, he's cold, he hits a lot of home runs. He's going to probably hit 30 this year, given health, if he's able to get his back right. Just go. Nolan Gorman. Just what you need to talk about. What do you think of Nolan Gorman and his defense? I would talk about his defense as well, because I think it's getting better.
Look, I love Nolan Gorman, and he is a very, very precious commodity. There's that left-handed power that he has, and his ability to be his ability to be, when he's on, maybe the most damaging left-handed bat in baseball is undeniable. That is something real that he possesses. And a lot of, I mean, obviously not a lot of people possess that as a bat. that type of left-handed dominance and that ability to do left-handed damage. And when he's on, no one's gonna they're only the elite are gonna be at that level, right? Mm-hmm. But he has been, and he's still only 23 or whatever. So there's still plenty of room for him to sort it all out. But he has always been streaky. And if you want to go a little further, like down to Peoria, which was a long time ago in his development, also pre-COVID, he wasn't really ready for that challenge. There were a lot of struggles. I watched them blow fastballs by him up in the zone and then drop breaking pitches into the dirt, and he was just swinging at everything. And just in that short 3-4 year window, we've seen him make progress to what he is now, which is learning to lay off of the high fastball, learning what the strike zone is at his letters so that he can optimize the damage he does, learning when he can sit on breaking pitches to do damage. Now, as we talk about the trends in his game, the other trend is that there are times when he is not a major league caliber hitter. And it usually happens between the times when he's the most damaging left-handed hitter in the Cardinals organization. So those until that balances out, this is always going to be part of his game. And you have to ride with him, which is dangerous when maybe your team isn't particularly good. So it's just a matter of how fluid you are as an organization and as a manager to move him down in the lineup, because when he's not good, you're going to know. It's going to be obvious. It's not like he's going to go 4 at-bats or 10 at-bats. It's not like he's going to go 10 at-bats and be bad and then be good all of a sudden. No, if he goes 10 at-bats and he's striking out 9 times, get him down in the lineup and just let that run its course, because eventually in 30 at-bats, 60 at-bats, I think, what was it, almost 100 at-bats the last really cold set
an entire month.
Yeah, almost 2 months. He was a below average run producer. Yeah. He is going to figure it out. And then you get him up, because you'll know it right away, because he's hit 3 home runs in 45 minutes. And then
exactly.
Then you the next day, you just put him at second and you let it run for however long it runs. But the other trend, of course, is the back. And the back has bugged him on and off for many, many years now. And that, to me, it's more of a concern than it seems to be to him or the Cardinals. I think I tweeted out last time that, he only missed 3 or 4 games, but just put him on the IL. Why are we screwing around with this? Just put him on the IL for 10 days. If it takes 30 days for him to figure it out and your training staff to figure it out, what he needs to do to adjust it, then that's what it does. We'll get that great quote every time that is, if this was a playoff team, if they were making a March, he'd play. But I don't give a shit about that. What I want to see is him get healthy. I want to see you put him on a program so that this doesn't crop up again. And as far as defense goes, he deserves all the credit in the world for the strides that he's made at second base this year. I thought at the end of last year, the end of the 2021 season in the minors, I thought he was closer to what he is now than he was last year. The offseason between 2021 and 2022 was not kind to him. He took steps back defensively, and to see him regroup and start showing what we saw at the end of 2021 while he was at the minors, after having a rough 2022 defensively, and then to build on top of that in 2023 at second base, you couldn't ask for anything more. And I know that Jose Oquendo has said he's going to be a Gold Glover, whatever that is. I don't think that's realistic. It might happen. We'll see. But for him to be what he is right now, with the chance to be even more than what he is right now, that kid deserves all the credit in the world for making himself that.
He's so tantalizing too. Just watching the guy play, when he's on, it's mesmerizing to watch him hit. I'll go back to that Dodgers series. Was that June, I believe, when he just lit the world on fire, hit that 3-run homer off Victor Gonzalez. He is incredible to watch when he's good. And I think a lot of us would say, hey, and I'm not saying he's Kyle Schwarber, but we would say, hey, we'd love Kyle Schwarber on our team. But what we don't have to watch, because we're not Phillies fans, is before June when he's batting 180 and he looks like he's never hit a baseball before. So you kind of have to take it. But like you said, Ollie's got to be willing to say, okay, we batted him third because he was batting 400 the last month. Well, now he's batting 120 in his last 5 games. Maybe bat him 7th. Maybe put him down a little bit and let him figure it out without the pressure of batting third. They need to be quicker to adjust in general, but specifically with a guy that I think you kind of know what he is right now.
Yeah. The other thing about him is when he's on, he's going to hit lefties, and when he's off, he's not. He might run into a home run here and there against the lefty, but like, don't if he's not on, if he's not in fuego, what I in my mind I call like in fuego mode. If he's not in fuego, then don't even bother with the lefties. Now, if he's hitting, then go ahead, give him as many at bats as you want against lefties, but don't screw with it if he's not hitting. It's all about timing and rhythm and comfort with him. So don't screw with any of that until it's time to just be like, all right, it doesn't matter how comfortable he is or where his timing is at. He's just going to hit.
Yeah. I just get so excited because as a lifelong Cardinal fan, next to Ray, this is the best left-handed hitting prospect I've seen in my lifetime. And the Cardinals have drafted and developed and got to the big leagues. Like maybe I'm missing someone. I mean, I know Matt Carpenter was good, but he wasn't Langford good. I mean, maybe he was. There was 4 years there. So maybe Matt Carpenter's the guy that I'm missing. But Gorman, the power, I've never seen that from a left-handed Cardinal prospect in my lifetime.
Can't tell you what's crazy about that is now again, you guys know that I'm a big Langford fan. It's a whole thing.
Same.
Exactly. Like think about their left-handed prospects. Chris Duncan, who also wore number 16. Yep. Colton Wong, who also wore number 16. Nolan Gorman, like pardon me. It's interesting that this is it, but you're right. Like, no, it is without a doubt Nolan Gorman since Ray Langford. As good as some of those guys might have been, as great as Matt Carpenter was as a Cardinal, it's Nolan Gorman hands down.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I have hanging in my closet an autographed Colton Wong 16 jersey right next to a Ray Langford 16 jersey. I feel like now I got to go get the Gorman jersey now that you brought that up.
Absolutely.
And a Duncan one. Like that. Yeah. I mean, what a great dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to get into catching because I have no doubt this is going to be one of the conversations behind what the hell to do with starting pitching, because that's a shit show. But of the offseason is Contreras, that mess that's gone on this year with how they've handled him. Kisner, he's hot, so he's making this whole thing convoluted. And Ivan Herrera, who, I mean, we finally saw what we wanted to see in the big leagues. Now he's at AAA again. What the hell do you do with this? I don't know. That's my question for you. What would you do? Because I have zero clue what I would do.
If you want to know how I really feel about this is one of those, hey, Kyle's terrible moments. As a matter of fact, I'm so terrible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug my computer and do what I do a lot of times. I'm going to put the little expending table down, and I'm going to take you guys into a journey to my kitchen so I can get some booze. So tonight, right, Wilson Contreras got dinged up. And my thought was, hey, good. Like, so here's my thought is you get Wilson Contreras on the IL as like 45 minutes ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, whenever it happened, put him on the IL and you leave him on there for the next month and a half. And then you just run Ivan Herrera and Andrew Kisner out there. You give Herrera 3 starts, you give Kisner 2, you figure it out, and you see what happens there. See if Ivan Herrera is something real. Maybe increase his trade value. Sorry, I got to do this thing with ice. I don't know why I do it. I missed one there. Hold on. Oh my god. Anyways, and then you let the Kisner and Herrera thing play out. While Contreras is on the IL, and just see what happens. Like you just got to see what happens. You got to know what that is, and then you have to adjust from there. But you need to see what Ivan Herrera is, and you're a little bit behind that. And then as far as the offseason goes, like I was the guy who was pretty vocal about saying of all the available options that were talked about, Wilson Contreras would have been at the bottom of my list. And that's not to diminish how good he's been in the last month and a half since the All-Star break or whatever. He's been one of the best hitters in baseball. It's just he never was really a fit for the Cardinals. And it's a bummer, too, because I've really come to love that guy's personality.
He's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, so my thought is it was not the right move at the time. It doesn't make it a bad move. It was still a decent move to make. Still relatively affordable for what you were getting. I just something isn't right there. So what I would do one way or the other is he goes on the IL. I give the Kisner Herrera a run, and then in the offseason, whatever happens in this little turn, I use to adjust on the fly. I don't think they'll trade Contreras. I think there's too much, not ego, that's not fair, but there's too much reputation at stake there for the organization to cut and run from Contreras so quickly, unless it's something he asks for. And then at that point, it's whatever. But I think that that's just where they're at. I think that unfortunately, the best case scenario for them as they enter the offseason is to see what would happen if Herrera and Kisner were given a run to be your everyday tandem. And then let Kisner's value that he's built this year, because you have to figure he's built some cachet, some value, especially with the way that he runs the pitching staff, and those pitchers love throwing to him. And then maybe give Herrera a chance to build up some of his value. Maybe a team that isn't willing to take a chance on him because he didn't have major league experience can look at him and say, oh, you know what? Now we've seen what he can do at the major league level, how he handles everything. And maybe that's an avenue to get the starting pitcher that you need. But without having Ivan Herrera up here and Andrew Kisner up at the same time in somewhat of a timeshare, I don't think you can maximize the value of all three of them, if that makes sense.
My follow-up would be, how many innings does Willson Contreras play in left field next year?
You know, I will say that if he's still with the Cardinals, I'll say so a 9-inning game. And if he plays 10 times, we'll say I will say
90.
I'll say that he plays 120 innings out in left field next year.
Wow. All right. That's a good number.
Hey, by the way, Willson Contreras, if he's an 820 OPS hitter, he can be an outfielder for you. Well, that's fine. That's just fine.
Here's my question to the both of you. If he's hitting 820 and he's your full-time DH, how do you feel about that?
I'm fine with it. I think I'll speak first. First off, biggest question of the night, what are you drinking? Okay,
so here's what I have. I have one of these Cutwater pina coladas.
Okay.
It is, I'll read it to you because, you know, I'm a fine, dapper gentleman. Pina colada made with Cutwater, Bali High rum, and coconut cream liqueur. It is not particularly good. So instead, what I'm drinking is, by the way, these Cutwaters, they've got a vodka mule that's pretty good. But if you're going to do this, just get Chi-Chi's. Just get the Chi-Chi's mix. Those things are awesome.
Okay.
They're the best. And then I'm drinking Old Forester tonight because at the local Schnucks, it's the only bourbon that I like that isn't behind the locked liquor cabinet. So it was just like, all right, I'm just going to go to the one that I don't have to ask somebody for assistance for the 30th week in a row.
Well, cheers. I have like 3 bottles of Bullet staring at me right over here. So cheers.
The standard or the rye or the 10? Or
we have the standard and we have 2 bottles of the rye because in New Orleans, Sazerac is the drink. So if people come to your house and you don't have rye and bitters on hand, you're immediately looked down upon. So awesome. I keep red beans in the cabinet, Crystal hot sauce in the fridge, and then bitters and rye on the alcohol cart.
Oh my God, I love it.
So there you go. Now I forgot what we were talking about. So we're talking about booze.
We were talking about Willson Contreras and the DH, but like Caleb, what have you been drinking? Are you drinking? Let me guess. You're drinking coffee from McDonald's.
That's right. Yes. It's so bad. It's $1 if you use the mobile app. So I'm balling on a budget here. I got there tonight, and they said, dude, how many times are you going to come here? And I was like, oh, shit, I can't come back. That's not something I ever thought I was going to hear from McDonald's. So I think I might take a break. That was too much.
You don't know.
Problem was I didn't even remember that guy's face. That's how much I go there. He's not even the one I see most of the time.
Caleb was hands down the cheapest human of all time. Literally.
I have to be. I'm going in my senior year of college. It's not a choice. It's what I have to do.
Caleb, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to have you close your eyes, and I'm going to have you draw that guy's face.
I couldn't if I tried.
But back to Contreras, I'm fine if he's at 820 OPS and he's DHing. I mean, absolutely. When you look around, I mean, we don't know who's going to be here next year. Like that's still obviously. But when you've got guys like Donovan and Nootbaar and Gorman and Arenado and Goldie and Walker, you got an 820 OPS DH who hits let's say 6th for you, even if it's not 5th. That's a long. The one thing this Cardinal, in my opinion, the Cardinals over the last 8 to 10 years, the length of the lineup has been way shorter, and it seems to get longer now as we get these guys. So if Contreras is hitting 6th or 7th for you, and he's got an 820 OPS at DH, I'm on board.
I also think this narrative that he's just a good hitting catcher, there's some fairness to that because he's a great hitting catcher. He's not a good hitting catcher. He's one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. But then they're like, oh, well, he's not a good hitting DH. Well, let's look around the league here. Like, look at the Phillies DH. Like, Bryce Harper's been around that. I mean, we know Bryce Harper's better than that, but right now they're a playoff team, and that's what he's done, around an 800 OPS. So it's not ideal because it hurts your off days with Goldie and Nolan when you want to put him there. It hurts what you can do with Donovan and Gorman and your flexibility there. So it does limit you. And I wouldn't want him to have 120 games at DH by any means. But if he's catching 65, 70 and DHing another 40, and maybe he has more off days than we expect, I'm okay with that.
It would be fascinating if he was one of the pitchers next year's personal catcher. So that's 1 in every 5 games.
Aaron Nola.
Aaron Nola. Kyle Hendricks, probably.
No. Please don't.
Rich Hill.
Yeah, Rich Hill.
Hey, if we get Kyle Hendricks, getting Kyle Hendricks is a big brain move because that saves us 3 losses at least a year when he pitches against us and goes 7 shutout.
Yeah. In my mind, I'm going over like the list of former Cubs pitchers that are still in the league who would be like, I'll throw to Wilson, whatever.
We'll trade for Jose Quintana again.
Yeah, Quintana. There. So really, let's not go down this rabbit hole, but that would make a lot of sense if the Cardinals traded for Jose Quintana this offseason.
I love Jose Quintana, honestly. I love him. He's been great since he's come back from his injury, too.
You just literally opened up, you just went Pandora's box is wild now.
That'll
never
go
Jose back Quintana, into the box, ever.
Hey, the Mets are selling off pitchers. We know that.
Yeah, well,
Luken Baker for Quintana, straight up.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, Mater for Quintana, straight up. He hits the ball hard. He's got long hair.
Yeah, I don't want to do that to Luken Baker. There's no reason to put him in the same locker room as Pete Alonso. Come on. No. Let's not do that to the guy.
They'd be friends. They'd be friends.
Okay, here's what I will say, and I know the kid wants to transition to pitching, and we'll get you out of here because I know you got things to do. Thank you again, by the way, so much for joining us. Kyle Reis, Birds on the Black.
Don't plug me. Don't have anybody follow me or follow Kareem. It's Kareem SSN. Cardinals, Daniel Shoptaw is his real name, but he's C70. And then Cardinals gifts who you all follow anyways.
Correct.
None of that. And you guys know what I'm going to do after this. I told you literally 40 minutes ago. So the longer this is you can keep me on here as long as you need to.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on. Yeah. We have a blast doing this, and it's always nice now to get other people coming in with us. Makes the show just better for all of our people who are tired of Caleb's brokenness and my bad jokes. So it's all good. It's all good to get people on here. But in my opinion, the worst thing that's happened this season, and there are a lot of them, you could make a pretty good laundry list here, is what has happened to Waino. For me, as again, I go back, I went to Cardinal games in the 70s. I was young. I do not remember that. So for me, 1982 is when my fandom of the Cardinals really began, age 8. So when you look at that 40 years since Adam Wainwright sits on the Mount Rushmore of Cardinals for me, of guys who worn the uniform, and I love top 4 for me all time that I love. Next to Langford, next to Albert, next to Willie. That's my 4 in my lifetime.
Real fast, I will interject. My thought is today I was thinking about this. Adam Wainwright is modern Mr. Cardinal to me. So go on.
Yeah, I agree. So
definitely
seeing this, and I got into something but a discussion with some people on Facebook where I really thought coming in this year, if Waino he didn't have to replicate 2022, but if he had a decent year, he's a Hall of Famer. The stats are, when you put him up in his era, he's right there with the Kershaws, the Greinke's, those guys.
He's
as
not
far as
right there with Clayton Kershaw.
A lot of those.
Let's stop that.
I mean, he is.
He's not.
Clayton
Kershaw's the top 10 pitcher ever. Let's take that back a little.
I'm saying he's
a notch below Zach Greinke,
who's going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Right, but he's a notch below him. And
okay,
5
my
below
point
Kershaw.
was, oh my God, I don't appreciate.
I'm sorry, I can't let that one slide.
This is why you shouldn't drink coffee. This is why the man at McDonald's doesn't like you.
You can't say he's
this
up
is
there
how
with
you talk
Kershaw.
to him. Either way,
oh goodness,
my point was, he's a top 5 pitcher of his generation. You could argue. All right, you could argue. Well, Caleb won't, but whatever. Now, my whole point, I was trying to give the man a tribute. You've ruined it, so thank you for that.
Say top 10 and you got it, but you're going too far.
Anyway, what has happened to him? I think now there's almost no chance he gets in the Hall of Fame because, unfortunately, people are going to remember this year, and I'm not saying you should, but we saw this with him, 5 or 6 years ago, where it was oh, this isn't the Waino we know. Then he reinvents himself. It just, to me, it breaks my heart to watch him go out because you know that every night he goes out there, he knows kind of what's coming.
Yeah. this next start is. I think we all have to watch his next start because there's a real chance it's the last start, and that sucks. It sucks.
And it's against the Mets. Kind of poetic, right?
You took the words right out of my not the poetic part of it, but like it's also justified, and there is poetry in that too. And look, I'm caught somewhere between the two of you on the Hall of Fame of it all. Like I'm just so dismissive. I'm one of these people who still thinks of the Hall of Fame as like these hollowed halls of Ruth and Gehrig and DiMaggio, and it isn't that anymore. Like those times are long gone. So like really what it comes down to is who's making the argument for you, who is on social media that's saying Adam Wainwright is a Hall of Famer, and who's pushing that, because that's normally what gets the Hall of Famers in. So with the right argument, had Adam Wainwright just had like above replacement, a win that like a replacement level season or an average value season, somebody with a huge Twitter following, if they decided to make it their goal to get Adam Wainwright into the Hall of Fame, probably could have done it. That doesn't necessarily mean I think he's Hall of Fame worthy, because my standards for the Hall of Fame are still from like 1984. I'm caught somewhere in between. But what I know is part of me died on Friday night when I watched that start. And every time he comes out, like if I didn't love to be in physical and emotional pain, I would not enjoy that at all. But for me, I just giggle in the corner, and my girlfriend says, "What the hell is wrong with you?" So like part of you dies, but part of you is just like, this is par for the 2023 course at the same time. And it's just another layer of like sadness piled on layer of sadness that feels like we cannot get ourselves out of soon enough. And that's just how I feel, because like I think the world of Adam Wainwright as a person. Yep. I just want to see him have success for these last 2 months. If that meant like a year off my life, I would gladly give it. And I don't really have any other thoughts or any other feel about it other than that I just don't think it's going to happen.
I've never felt so fortunate in my life to not be in a major league clubhouse.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like looks awful. And I'm not necessarily anti the argument for Wendell getting the Hall of Fame. It's just when you put him next to Kershaw, that's just kind of crazy.
I wasn't saying he was Clayton Kershaw. Like I thought you were. Look, bro, you go to U of I. You're a smart kid. I thought you could infer that I wasn't saying they were the same human.
Just so you know that this is being recorded. You can't say something and change it later. It is on. People are going to know what you said. Like it's now.
My point wasn't. My point was that he lied. Oh my! Never mind. Let's move on. There's no need to argue. So, but so this is. I know Caleb wants to get to this too. So let's go ahead. You look at the young kids down there in the minor leagues with Hentz, Graceffo, McGreevy, obviously Zach Thompson, who really struggled when they sent him down, which, by the way, I'm still confused why they did what they did to Zach Thompson. That's enough. Add it to the list. Like, add his name to the list on what were you doing with Zach Thompson. But and then you look at the new guys that they brought in at the draft, or at the draft, I mean trade deadline, my apologies. Like there's some bona fide arms in our minor league system that I don't know who pans out. I don't know who becomes a starter, who you move to the bullpen. But it seems like we haven't had this for a long time, unless maybe I'm just paying more attention to the minor leagues now than I have.
At least the sheer number of arms, I don't think we've had in a while.
Yeah.
But I want to get to Zach Thompson because Matt went down with an injury today, as I'm sure you saw. So Thompson's going into the rotation because that's just another thing they can do to him that's weird. But he's been great. His last 2 outings, I mean, one was an opener. So I think that probably is a different mindset than being a starter, I would imagine. But he was great piggybacking Waino Friday. Do you think he can be a big league starter? Is that within his range of outcomes? Because I'm not sure.
It's all about collecting data. And again, Adam Akbani, who writes for Viva Alberto's, he put out something about, I think it was Adam. It might have been somebody else. So if it was Blake or Kareem or maybe even Cardinal Reek, whoever it was, they put out something about since he started using his cutter at the major league level, it's kind of changed his success rate. And that piques my interest. That tells me that there is a pitch in that arsenal that he's capable of throwing that makes him a potential starter at the major league level, or gives him the chance to have continued major league success, even if it is out of the bullpen. I will say that there's nothing I've seen at the minor league level at any of his stints, no matter what his role is, that has ever given me hope that he would be able to have sustained major league success as a starter. Even when he was throwing what was defined as a slider back then, like I liked the slider for a short period of time better than I liked the curveball, because his curveball he would have trouble with. He'd get on the side of, and he'd air it out, and it wouldn't break. It would just kind of like stay as like a really slow pitch at the top of the zone. So I do think that there's a chance that if the success that he's having using the cutter is in there with his changeup and his curveball and his fastball, then if he can find that the proper usage of all those pitches, then yes, I do think with the 4-pitch mix that there is major league success as a starter in there. I love that he's going to be in the rotation, just like with the Von Herrera and Andrew Kisner thing. I love that we're going to get to see it, even if it is at the expense of one of the more productive starting pitchers, if not the most productive starting pitcher in the organization at this point. So let's wait and see. I still think he's developing. I still think he's one of those pitchers that suffered from the lost 2020 season, just like Matthew Liberatore has. These pitchers who were rushed to the AAA after a COVID that lost 2020 minor league season. I still think we're still learning about these pitchers, and these pitchers are learning about themselves, and they're learning about pitching in the major league. So just like with Matthew Liberatore, like to me, Liberatore and Thompson are on the same level. It's give them every opportunity down the stretch to learn how to pitch in the major leagues, and just see if one of them can be that, if not both of them, because I do think that they both have the chance. I don't know how realistic both are, because both have kind of weird fastballs, and we're learning more and more about the fastball and how important it is to have a plus fastball. So it's just a matter of like them sorting it out to get to that point. The one thing I want to say, your question about like the pitching depth in the organization, my mind immediately goes to 2018, right? Because that was when they had, before they traded Alcantara and Gallen, they had Alcantara, Gallen, Helsley, Hicks, Hudson, Gamba.
Reis.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say that there was a time, even dating back to Luke Weaver, because people forget how good of a prospect Luke Weaver was. And like, I would say there was a time between like, we'll just say 2015 and 2018. And that's probably not the right window, but between 2015 and 2018, when the Cardinals had like a serious amount of starting pitching prospects. So they're not nearly there. I would say this is more along the lines of like 20, like when Waka was 2013, 2014, 2015, right as the Cardinals were starting to build their identity, their national identity is like a starting pitching franchise. Like that's, I would say that they're getting back to that point, but not at like what I would consider the peak or the pinnacle, which was in that like 2016, 2017, 2018 bubble.
And then they messed it all up.
And then pitchers, like, so this is the other thing I've learned over these years. Again, I'm 37 years old. I've probably been following the minor leagues now for 20 years. And you're just constantly learning and adjusting. You're constantly learning and adjusting your expectations. And we've all been critical. I've been critical about the way that the Cardinals have drafted pitching. Michael McGreevy, I've been very critical of. And also like the way that they drafted in 2019 in particular, where it was a infield strength draft and they drafted a lot of collegiate arms. And the only one that's really panned out is Zach Thompson and Andre Palante, and everyone else is kind of cratered. I've learned that pitching is miserable, right? There's no way around it. Drafting pitching, developing pitching, it's miserable. I think about Tin Kent's, right? Like, he's great. He's a great starting pitching prospect. But, like, his development is miserable. Cooper Jerpy, development is miserable. Like, it makes a lot of sense, these organizations that just go, look, I'm gonna draft every hitter I can, because when you get the chance to draft hitters early, they're probably going to pan out because they're extremely talented, and all of these pitchers are going to implode eventually. So I'm doing this thing where I'm trying not to overcorrect in that direction, but I feel myself overcorrecting in that direction. And I don't even know how to rationalize or reason pitching prospects or pitching development, even if the Cardinals have been really crappy at it for the last couple of years. I just think that, like, say that they had drafted all these pitchers, would they have gotten hurt? When are they going to get hurt? Somebody asked me about Jerpy today. Will Jerpy need Tommy John? Like, yeah, of course he's going to need Tommy John. Hence will too.
Twice, maybe.
Yeah. There might be a couple of them in there. There's no telling. But if you're telling me I drafted a starting pitcher and I drafted a position player who's going to get hurt first, I'm going to lay $3,000 down on the pitcher getting hurt first, because that's where the smart money is. So that's all just to go on a stupid little rant about something that's been stuck in my head these last couple of weeks, which is pitching blows. Developing pitching blows, and becoming a pitcher blows. So you're welcome.
It's so funny you said that, because I'm in the land of LSU down here, and we just saw what they did, and obviously number 1 and 2 pick. And every time I turn on MLB Network or fill in the blank, oh, you got to take Paul Skeens. And I'm sitting there going, I've just watched Dylan Cruz for 3 years here. And everybody that I work at a local golf course, and we get a lot of LSU people, and everybody, best guy I've ever seen at LSU, Dylan Cruz. That's what they tell me. To a T. And I'm
sitting there twice yesterday, by the way.
He did. Yes. He's got 3 already. I'm taking Dylan Cruz every time, because even if it is a Pirates or a Nationals or whoever, that guy's going to be, he could be in the big leagues next year.
And you can just trade problem. And if you're any other organization, you can just trade for Paul Skeens after he has 2 years of service time, because the Pirates will not have him anymore once he costs enough money. That's why when I hear the Mosaic say we're getting 3 starting pitchers, I'm like, oh, who are they trading that's going to hurt them for a guy that's going to get hurt immediately after we get him?
Yeah.
Nolan Gorman is going to be a Mariner, and he's going to hit 50 homers, and then our pitcher is never going to touch the mound.
Yeah, you're right. That's the whole risk, man. I'm right there with you. It's funny. I would say about 3 months before the draft, I was trying to collect as much information on the top of the draft as possible. With the top of the draft, since the Cardinals never draft at the top of the draft, I like to just gather information about those guys, because I don't have to worry about them when I do draft research. And I cannot tell you how many people I heard tell me that Dylan Cruz was on par of a hitting prospect as Bryce Harper was. And then
which is crazy, by the way.
What did you say, Caleb? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's crazy too, because Bryce Harper is the best prospect we've ever seen, maybe.
Exactly. But then prospect fatigue, draft prospect fatigue crept in with Cruz, and it bust with Langford and Skeens. And just that quick, Pittsburgh saw what they had. They know that rushing pitchers now is actually kind of in vogue. And they thought, all right, we're just going to go, and we can make the money work. Money makes more sense. And that's, I have to assume that's why Skeens got drafted, and everybody jumped on board, not thinking about the fact that his arm's going to blow up in the next 5 years, more than likely.
Yeah.
Right, the guy throws 92-mile-an-hour sliders.
He looks like Jacob deGrom college edition.
He does.
That's what he looks like when you watch him.
I'm not taking a shot at Paul Skeens. Love the guy from everybody I've talked to. He's an awesome dude. Everybody seems to love him. I hope he has an incredible career. Hope he goes to the Hall of Fame that you're thinking about, the one with Lou Gehrig. That one. That's the one I want him to
Maybe he'll even
into.
be better than Clayton Kershaw, but worse than Adam Wainwright.
I'm just saying that I'm still taking Dylan Cruz, and I'm a Wyatt Langford fan, even though I don't like Florida. I think Langford is probably going to be a star too.
The fact that he didn't go number 3 overall is crazy.
Yeah. But it's fun to watch those guys, those college guys. It seems like, they talk down here, and I'm sure that you know this because you watch way more minor league baseball than anybody else, but they kind of equate the SEC baseball to essentially high A. It's like what do you think about that?
I personally think that the high end of the SEC as close to AA as you're going to find. That's what I think. I don't watch as much college baseball as I need to, but that's where my mind is. I really think high A, if you're doing the whole league, because in high A you have some really good teams with some really high talent, and then some teams that are middling, and then maybe 1 or 2 teams at the bottom. So high A makes a lot of sense. But I think if you were to take every year the top 4 teams in the SEC, I would say that they might be the bottom tier of AA, especially in the second half. But I think that, I think that this year's LSU team probably could have competed. They might have been a 500 team.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
13 players drafted.
Yeah.
13.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I mean, honestly, and Cam Johnson, 14, like was really excited. The Cardinals drafted him at 20, but I was like, I kept telling all the Cardinals,
chance.
guys, he's going to LSU. He is not,
he's not.
unless they throw like $5 million
with NIL deals.
Yeah,
there's no reason not.
And the kings of NIL are like LSU. The money that they have down here is unbelievable. We don't want to keep you too long. I got a lot more questions, but hopefully we can have you back, man. I'd love to have you back on. I know Kale's got one more thing.
Yeah,
we got one more because this college talk made me think of it. This is my last thing I've got. Chase Davis, Palm Beach. He started out a little slow. Who cares? Obviously he started out slow because he should start out slow. What do you think of him? The player. How do you think he's going to adjust with the wood bat? And also, I love the draft pick. I also, with Kareem's help, I predicted it. But what do you think of the draft pick? What do you think of him and his personality and everything he brings?
Oh, I'm pretty well documented at this point in saying that I just like that kid. I would say a couple of weeks before the draft is when I started like diving into the behind the scenes stuff about the players that are kind of in the range of the Cardinals, and he just sticks out. I know that when you guys talk to Kareem, Mike, one of the points that you were talking about is within the recruiting stage. Like, if you know that, like, I can't think of the coach's name. What's the coach's name? Johnson.
Yeah.
Like, if you're being recruited by him, you know that there's something special about the player. And it's so true. And then when Johnson, because he moved from Arizona right to
LSU,
and he wanted to bring Chase Davis with him, and Chase said no. And I thought, to me, the way that Chase said, "Look, I committed to Arizona. I'm going to stick with Arizona. This is what I signed up for, and I'm going to work to earn that spot." All of that played in to like me wanting to learn more about him, and then hearing interviews with him. And for a while there at the beginning of the year, he was kind of like canned answer guy, but you could see like he wanted to say so much more, and he wanted to. You could see it. So as like you started finding clips of him being interviewed on campus. Week after week after week, like you could see him start to come out of his shell a little bit more. And then you start to go back to 2020 and read about him as a prospect in 2020 and the kid that he is and the family he grew up with and the player that he is. And then you hear his teammates talk about him, and they're not canned answers when they talk about the person that he is and the player he is. There's these really raw emotions and these really like real quotes, and like how dedicated he is on campus, and how he wanted to be there for the younger players and also be a sounding board for the older players, and like learn about the game on the fly. Like he has a lot of athleticism, and we've seen him make the strides with his in zone swinging, with his plate discipline.
His strikeout numbers, the way he like cut those in half, it's incredibly impressive.
Exactly. He learned, and he used tech to learn, and he's becoming a modern boy. And it's like, which doesn't mean everything. It's just when you can adjust to the modern teachings to make yourself better, that is a huge positive. So look, I don't know if I believe that the power is going to be real for him. Not, it's not gonna, I don't know if I believe that. I think he's probably going to be more of a doubles hitter more frequently than he is going to be power. I think that there's 20, 25 home runs in there. How he continues to feel comfortable with his swing and inside of the strike zone, obviously, is going to be what gives him success. I just know that first week that I watched him, the kid was just jumping at everything and guessing at pitches and not going through the method. He was just trying to impress. And then as we saw this last week at Palm Beach, he was starting to settle into himself a little bit. But he's an incredibly smart, incredibly athletic, incredibly charming, incredibly intuitive, and also aggressive learner. And if you're going to take a first-round draft pick, then that's the kind of kid with all those raw tools and all those actual tools. That's the kind of kid you take a first-round draft pick with, even if it doesn't pan out.
And his swing is incredible.
Yeah.
God, it's so pretty.
Beautiful.
It's Carlos Gonzalez's swing. Like, I don't like comps most of the time, but it is the same swing. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's the exact same swing.
I love that everyone has that in their mind, because he's going to have to change parts of that swing to become a major league caliber outfielder. So what's going to be fascinating is to see how he's going to have to change the mechanics within his swing mechanism, not necessarily his swing, but the body mechanism to get to the major league level and still have that swing. And that's when you know that it's clicked for him. Is his lower body is going to have to change. And the way that his lower body fires with his upper body is going to have to change a little bit. But when he's doing those, when he's making those little adjustments, because they're just small little adjustments, when he's doing that and he's still producing that the Cargo-esque swing, then that's how you know that he's hit that next level of sustainable production at the minor league level, success-wise.
He should just hit with Cargo for an offseason.
Can we just take 2 seconds and just imagine an outfield at LSU with Chase Davis, Dylan Cruz, and Braden Jobert in a lineup with Trey Morgan and Tommy Tanks at the corners? That might, like, they might have assembled the greatest college football team with Burrow, and that might have been the greatest college baseball team of all time if that was the case.
Yeah.
Tommy Tanks, future Cardinal, by the way.
Yep, that's my guy. Tank for Tommy Tanks. That's what we're doing right now.
Tank for Tank. All right.
He's going to be real fast. He's going to be fascinating. His stock this coming year is going to be fascinating to watch.
Does he not?
He's such an interesting hitter
like
to
Justin
watch.
Turner to you, only bigger. Yeah. But I'm not talking about the comps. I'm just saying it's like that's who he physically reminds me of.
I get you. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the most interesting hitter I've ever seen in my life. He's like touching the ground with his butt when he's swinging. It's wild.
The one thing I will say about him is we've got a couple former LSU guys who come into the golf course, so I've been able to get to know them. They say he is literally the guy. Like, he is there first. He is there last. He is, if you need baseballs shagged in the outfield, he's out there doing it. Like, he is beloved, which when you hear work ethic like that and you see the talent, that tells me that guy's going to play in the show.
He's a Cardinal.
Yeah, he also, like, NC State, not to diminish what LSU is, but like NC State doesn't screw around with players that aren't dedicated like that. Like,
right.
Between Kisner and Evan Mendoza, some of the contacts I've made with NC State, like I know for a fact that losing him was tough for them, not only because of his skill, but because of the type of kid he is. Mm-hmm. But also, they never would have screwed with him if he wasn't that caliber kid. Like, when I think about that, I think of, like, obviously Vanderbilt, I think of ECU, I think about NC State, I think about LSU. There are other programs across the country like that. I don't have as many connections to the West Coast programs, and people talk about Oklahoma and Texas kind of being similar, but like those four, Vandy, LSU, ECU, and NC State, they do not, and this is Burleson, who's from ECU.
Yep.
They do not fuck around with people who don't want to be there. And every day you show you want to be there. So yeah, that makes all the sense in the world.
Yep. Well, thank you, dude. We can't thank you enough. Caleb, you got anything else?
No, I'm good. All
right.
Out.
Like, seriously, Kyle, I greatly appreciate you. We'd love to have you back. I got many other questions about guys, because I told you, I don't watch the Cardinals. Now I just watch minor league baseball. So now I'm tuning into that. But thank you so much, bro, for joining us. We greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and having some Old Forester here joining us, man. We appreciate that.
Hey, guys, it's my pleasure. I love talking it over with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, guys, thank you so much, as always, for joining us. If you could hit that subscribe button for YouTube, we would greatly appreciate that. And we will be back talking Cardinal baseball with you soon. Go Cards.